Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. Hey, we got Amy Bailey back for an unprecedented third time. Only guest ever, third time. That's how good she is. So, in case you haven't tuned in yet, see, she's the editor and publisher of My Scoop, where you will learn all the latest fashion, delicious recipes, craft cocktails, gardening, travel, party ideas, and everything the Southern Belle needs to know how to live beautifully. And you know she asks me for tips on that all the time. So, she's back mainly today to talk about dry January. We had questions from readers on both of our audiences, and we got some great content. So, Amy, welcome back.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. I
Absolutely.
always love talking to you.
Oh yeah, we always have a good time, right? And you've been so helpful. We get great feedback every time you're on. That you're just helping so many people do this. That they have lots of questions, and we've had so many questions. We thought, hey, why not do a special episode just on these questions that we've had? So we'll just get right into it. So, there's going to be temptations, there's going to be pressures. How do you handle those in January?
Well, with the fresh start of the new year, I think it's such a mental thing we have all these health plans with exercise and these regimens. So why not refocus and have a new plan to accomplish dry January? And again, I think the hardest part is in the beginning. And so if you can power through those first few days, few weeks, you'll find yourself in a nice little place for
Yeah.
sure.
So when you first started way back when? First of all, how long have you been sober?
It's been 3
3
years.
years. Wow. See?
Yes.
So when if you
A
go
lot.
back the very first dry January, what did you do to to get through those first few days, the toughest few days?
Um, that's a good question. Um, you know, I think just keeping busy is very helpful, if it's that time in the afternoon, that 4:30, 5 o'clock, where you're so used to having a drink, having something else to fill that space, going on a long walk, um, you know, calling a friend, make reaching out to people kind of part of your daily routine too. And, by the time you get past 7 o'clock, you're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, that is, I think a lot of sometimes, especially during the pandemic, I think you saw a lot of people that boredom just became drinking, just something to do to
Right,
make your day a little bit different, because we were all in that routine of doing the same thing. So,
right.
so another question we had is, what are some good mocktail options when you're out at work functions or social settings? What are some ones that you recommend?
So the easiest one, and the one that you're probably going to find almost anywhere you go, club soda, splash of cranberry, and lime. It gives you puts something in your hands, so you feel like, okay, I'm celebratory, I'm engaged. And then if you're worried about people asking you, about drinking, well, they still think you're drinking. I think that's something we find too that is more in our heads is, oh gosh, people are going to start asking me why I'm not drinking. People do not notice, especially if you still have a drink in your hand. They just are not thinking that much about what you're doing.
Yeah,
But in our heads, we think they are.
yeah, for sure. That's a good one. That sounds a good one right there. So as I'm going in there, there's probably some things I haven't thought about going. So the next one it asks, what are some challenges I need to think about going into dry January?
Um, you know, that fear of boredom, which we've talked about a little before, just those first few days thinking, how am I going to do this? That's a very overwhelming thought that in the beginning is, you know, is there, it's present. And again, just powering through, you know, in AA, I have friends that are in AA, and one of their mottos is one day at a time. And it really is one day at a time. If you just think about that first day, and that's something that can be applied to so many things in
Absolutely.
life.
Yeah.
And so just stay in that present moment, think about what your goals are and how you've challenged yourself, and stay committed to that. And I think what you will find after that 30 days or however long you're able to power through, is it's pretty empowering to know that you stuck to this goal.
Yeah, that's it. And that's how you build confidence, right? You set a goal, you prove to yourself you can do it, and man, it's so much better. And then, hey, if I can do 1 month, I mean, just like you, I was able to do this 1 month, well why not two? And then three, and then 3 years later, here you are, right?
I
So
mean, who
that's great
knew?
advice that, the Navy SEALs say, don't look forward to the pain. Like, don't worry about the next swim or exercise or whatever. Just stay right here. You can't be in the future anyway. Just don't look, because if you think about how far you have to go, it could be overwhelming and you'll just give up a lot of the time. So that's
Right,
great advice
right.
on, yeah, and you nailed it. You can apply that to anything. So the next one, what are some of your favorite alcohol-free spirits and other commercially available non-alcoholic options?
Well, there are so many out there, and that is kind of what's mind blowing,
Hmm.
especially, you know, to people our age who grew up in this time when there were not NA options
Right.
besides what is it, O'Doul's? I mean,
Yeah,
that was
that was the
it,
one.
right?
Yeah, that was it.
So, and no one wanted to drink that. And so, the fact that there are so many options that are just delicious. And something else I have found interesting is, a lot of these companies are incorporating health into it. Maybe they've added some type of vitamin B, but it's not just, hey, these are alcohol free options. There's typically some kind of nutrient addition too. So I don't know that there's nutrient additions in the ones I'm about to show, but these are some of my favorites. So, Athletic Brewing, they have this Run Wild IPA. In fact, they have several beer choices, and they're excellent. They are so good. Those days of thinking that non-alcoholic beer was terrible are over.
Yeah.
So these people really know what they're doing, and it's wild too. I think their sales are up like
Yeah,
600%.
that's what I'm about
I
to say.
mean,
They are killing it out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And then, shout out to the big guys too. Budweiser came out with Bud Zero, and this thing's delicious. I like to add a little salt and lime. It's fantastic. And something I haven't tried yet is Guinness came out with a zero. And so I used to love a Guinness. I have found a replacement for Guinness, Groovy. They do several beers and then some sparkling alternatives. And they have a mocha stout that is very similar to a Guinness. And I love that, especially this time of year. You want something a little heavier. And speaking of groovy, so this is one of my favorites. It's called the Dry Secco. And, all of these you can find online. It's typically no shipping charge. And then some of these, Bud Zero, Publix has Bud Zero.
Yeah.
Athletic Brewing, Whole Foods has Athletic Brewing. So a lot of these can be found locally too. And on that note, um, this wine, it's called Hand on Heart. It's delicious. And the wine cellar, which is on Whitesburg Drive, they actually have several non-alcoholic options of wine. And that's something it's kind of hard to find a good tasting non-alcoholic wine. And Brandy with the wine cellar, she does an excellent job. And so I would suggest checking out some of these local stores too to see what they have.
Man, props to you for the visual aids. I know I mean, you gave
Yay.
Budweiser props. I got to give you props. You got visual aids, man. That was impressive right there. So
Well, the funny thing is I never drank any kind of Bud products before, and now I found one that I love.
there you
So
go. Who knew? Who
I
knew
know,
Budweiser,
I
right?
know.
All right, the next one. This is kind of a fancy question. My friend Morgan asked on this one. So, what's the best slash healthiest way to replace the sugars and alcohol that the body learns to expect?
I love this question because it is a valid scientific question. Um, I've noticed in myself more sugar cravings. And when my dad had a series of strokes, he had been a heavy drinker all his life. And so the thing the doctor told us was he's going to probably start craving sugar a lot more because now he cannot have alcohol. And he did. He ate ice cream almost every single day. And when I say ice cream, I mean like a pint of ice cream. And so I reached out to a dear friend who's a nutritionist in Birmingham, and she's a really fun person to follow too. She's on Instagram. It's the Peachy Spoon, and her name's Meredith. She suggested, reaching for things that are more on the healthy side. So yes, those sugar cravings are going to occur. Instead of reaching for ice cream or candy, try dark chocolate. Um, do a smoothie, like something that will replace those sugars, but in a more healthy way, less processed way.
Yeah, science up in
So,
here. Watch
I
out. The
know.
Peachy Spoon, that's a cool name right there. So I need to
Yeah,
give her a
she's
follow.
awesome. You should follow her. You
I
would
will.
enjoy it.
All right. All right. The next one's from one of your followers right there. So I often feel stuck in this cycle of excited to go out, blah, and hungover the next morning, followed by a boring, unproductive day, and then right back to meeting friends for drinks. My life seems the same as it did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's as if I'm in a time warp that centers around drinking. Did you ever feel this way, and how do you feel now?
That's a great
And
question.
I think there's so many people in the same situation. I'm curious about this one too.
So I felt I felt that way often, and it almost, like she says, like you're in a time warp. Your life is on repeat. Same thing, different day. And to me, you know, I think my life doesn't look that different on the outside, but on the inside, it feels so different. We have a beautiful, spirited daughter. And so, of course, she was changing and growing, and we were having all these moments with her as she grew. And, other things were happening in the world. I was still, freelance writing and traveling and doing these things. But inside, I did not feel like I was growing or evolving. It felt very stagnant, very boring. And what I found when routine drinking stopped being a part of my life was I I did feel drastically different. I did feel like things were changing, that not every day was the same old thing. It allowed more space to simply think about things in a more deep way. It allowed more space to do things that I always came up with excuses not to do. Exercise, walking, reading, you name it. I found that that space that alcohol was taking up now was being filled with different things. And that mundane, oh, here we go, another day, that went away. And there is certainly a stuck feeling that when you are routine drinking, I think a lot of people feel. And we kind of rationalize that, oh well, this is just a part of life, and this is just how you feel as an adult, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
So
I think that's any routine you get stuck in. You're just like, well, this is just the way things are, and this is who I am now. Which,
right,
because it's hard to change. It's hard to look outside yourself and like it doesn't have to be like this. So, kudos for you for breaking
right.
out of that. So, the next one, I can't imagine not drinking at all. How do you go to parties and dinners and not drink?
Ah, it's it's a lot easier than you think, and it's not easy in the beginning. Um, so find those things, head to the bar, grab the club soda with lime, have those things that replace that old routine of, oh my God, I'm at a party, I feel so anxious. The only thing that's going to help me relax is getting a drink. If you push through and realize I don't have to have alcohol to help me relax, because a lot of times, it may initially take the edge off, but then it creates this whole other anxiousness after that. And so develop that new routine when you go into a party. You know, maybe it's going to grab the club soda with lime. Maybe it's strategically finding that friend you want to talk to. And I feel like I enjoy parties so much more now than I did because I'm more engaged and I'm not so worried about what everyone else is doing. How long do I have to stay here? I'm talking and I'm listening, and the connections, they just feel much deeper than they did when I was thinking that, oh, in order to survive this social situation, I have to have a drink, you know?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I've felt that. I'm not gonna lie. Where I walk in, I'm like, man, because I'm a homebody for the most part. So if I go out, I'm a little bit nervous, all that stuff. So, and let me ask you this. This isn't on the list of questions. Do you find that drunk people annoy you now?
Okay, I will be honest. In the beginning, it was a little annoying, and now it's become, oh, how to, it's a little entertaining.
Okay.
And so, um, and I've I've talked to other friends who have been on this journey who have kind of said the same thing. There is this in the beginning, when you stop, you just become so much more aware, and you realize too, oh, I did that, you know,
Yeah,
oh, did
yeah.
I act like that? And yes, we most certainly have all acted like that, you know, but it that annoyance does go away. And if you're in a situation where it's just too much and everyone around you is being, you know, belligerent, slurring their words, you don't have to stay. You can go.
That's right.
So,
And you don't have to wait on Uber. You can drive in your own car, right? You can go whenever
right.
you're ready.
See, something you never have to worry about.
There you go.
A friend and I went to a concert at the Caverns in Tennessee, which is this really super cool venue. But you know, it's a hour and 15-minute drive, and she doesn't drink either. And it was amazing because you know the show was over at midnight, but there were no worries about the drive home because why? I mean, we're totally sober, so you know, our energy wasn't sucked. We weren't, you know, buzzed. It was not even a thought. Like, of course, we can go to this awesome concert and then drive home after, you
Yeah.
know?
I just worry about being sleepy, not even drinking, man. I just need a coffee or
That's
something.
true.
I'm old, man.
That's
That's
true.
late for me. So,
I do
uh,
like my early bedtime.
another one off the list, but I need to know: how are white people supposed to be able to dance without alcohol? That's not. You don't have to answer that. So, we'll go
Okay.
on to the next one.
Well,
So,
I do think I'm still a pretty good dancer.
oh,
And
see, if you think you're a good
that
dancer
may be a
sober, then
personal
you must
opinion.
be one. Yeah.
That may be a personal opinion, and if anyone were to video me, I may change my mind.
Yeah.
But
Well, hey, if you think you're a good dancer sober, then that's pretty good. You must be pretty good, because
I don't know. I don't
and
know. But
yeah.
I do get out there because life is short,
There
right?
you go. Why not? Dance like no one's watching, they say. So, all right, the next one. So, I have a friend in the middle of a messy divorce that I really think is alcohol driven. How do I approach this couple out of love?
Whew. Um,
That's a big one right
that's a
there.
big one. That's a big one. And I think we've all probably witnessed some of that. And I mean, I don't know if we've even talked about this before, but my husband and I were divorced for 2 years and reconciled. And so I now can certainly see how alcohol played into that. You know, there have there have been situations that I've dealt with that are a little similar, and I think the key is to just say, "Hey, I love you both. I feel I feel like you need to really take some time and think about this. Go see a counselor. You know, maybe go see your pastor. You know, just talk to other people and get wise counsel. You know, go to an actual, you know, family psychiatrist. And I think that's just so important. You do, if you were to mention the alcohol, you might push them away. So I do think you don't have to focus on that, but you could say, I know sometimes life is really stressful, and um and things can seem like they're weighing down on you. You can argue too much, and sometimes alcohol and other things can play into that. That's a tough question. I do think there's a way to be more eloquent and say it so it comes across as, hey, I'm concerned for you. um the hardest part of that is you don't know until you know. And so
Yeah.
when you step away from alcohol is really when you start seeing more of these things and being more aware. And so when you're in it, you've never, oh, alcohol could play into my decision making, even though it's, it's on the bottle of,
Yeah.
um, we don't think very deeply about that because it's not something people talk a lot about. And so I would just find a very neutral way to say it, and don't just say, I think you're drinking too much and that's making you get a divorce, because someone's going to immediately
Oh yeah.
stop listening to you. And so just say, I'm concerned, I think you need to talk to people, and just really let some professional people know what's going on in your life. And here's some things I've read. I just think maybe you need to think more about these decisions. So
Yeah. I mean, getting
yeah.
a fresh set of eyes from a professional. I mean, that's the way to go, I think. So that's what they
Yes.
do. They're called professional. They get paid for this stuff. Let them help you.
And we should all be talking to someone like that, even on happy days.
Yeah.
It's very, very important to do that therapy for sure.
I think so too. All right, the next one is another deep one right here. So, my brother died of suicide. His mind was so very affected by alcohol. I can't stand to see getting drunk glamorized all the time, but no one wants to admit alcoholism brings on diseases of the body and the mind, plus the lives it ruins. I find myself not speaking up because I don't want to offend anyone. Do you think society's mindset will ever change?
Oh, um, I I'm so sorry um, to hear this, this personal story and what they've been through. I do think that without a doubt, society is changing, because we see that all the time. People are talking more about how alcohol affects us, and people are becoming more aware. And you see this whole, sober spirits movement too. And so I definitely think alcohol is changing. And I think for a long time, people who didn't drink, were looked at as the wet blanket, whether they had issues and had to stop, or whether they simply chose to stop. It was a wet blanket topic. No one wanted to acknowledge it. No one that was not drinking was fun, right?
Yeah,
And so with more people talking about it and this human awareness, and isn't that the evolution of society too? As we become more aware of these things, we become better and wiser. And so it doesn't mean, everyone has to stop drinking. Drinking can be fun, but just to have that awareness, which I do think is happening, um, people are shifting. And, saying, instead of, masking behind a lot of these things, um, you know, understanding alcohol does affect my mind in this way. Alcohol does affect my body in this way. It was, the reason, this happened. Um, Again, awareness, and I do think that is changing in society. And there's nothing wrong with being aware. We know how cigarettes affect us.
absolutely.
People understand that, And so we should know how these things affect us, even though they can be fun and they are a part of our society and history. Just that awareness.
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, you look at like movies and stuff in the 50s, and everyone's smoking and everyone's drinking, and it's cool. That's what the cool kids do. And you now you like people awareness is getting out there. That's key. And I'm with you. I think the mindset it's not it's going to take a long time to completely change around, but it's definitely headed that way. So we're trending up in that one. So that was a
True.
deep question. This one is more of a straightforward one. How is your energy levels?
Ah, so much better. So much better. I remember 10 years ago just thinking, oh gosh, do I need supplements? Do I need Red Bull? Like, how am I going to get through this day? I'm so tired. And I was 34 years old then. I shouldn't have had any energy issues. Um, but alcohol, and former President George W. Bush has talked about this too. Like, one of the big reasons he stopped drinking was the energy levels. There was no way to accomplish and do the things he wanted to do if he was routine drinking. And the older we get, it's harder to metabolize. I mean, there's so many things that science, it's really happening inside of us. And when we understand that, it can change everything. And so when that was removed, my energy levels changed drastically. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't feel like taking a nap every now and again, but there's a significant difference in how I get up in the morning. And, normally having that early bedtime and getting good sleep, it changes so much. And to me, that that energy level is a very precious thing.
Sure.
As a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, I have to be able to be productive, and maybe not, you know, fully productive every day, but I've got to be able to function at a better level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing when you have good energy, what can get accomplished. Otherwise, just kind of sitting around, you don't feel like doing anything, and another day passes by and you didn't get anywhere. That's just it's a bad feeling. I do that sometimes.
Right.
I mean, my days are long. Sometimes I'm sleepy, and the next day I'm like, man, I was worthless today. Just I didn't get it done. But so you can get prioritize your sleep, and you're talking about alcohol can mess with your sleep quality sleep with that you don't get. When you get older, man, that sleep gets precious.
Oh.
You kids out there listening, you don't know. Okay, it's precious.
You
All
don't
right.
know how
Oh
awesome
no.
a 9:30 bedtime is.
Oh man, I love
So
if I'm not in
it's
bed by
like the
9:30, something's
best.
gone horribly wrong with my day.
I
Sad but
mean,
true.
it's the best. It really is. It really
Man.
is.
Yeah, 4 o'clock comes early. So if I'm not in bed 9:30, it's bad. All right. So the last one we got for this one right here. So I'm completely over the mommy wine culture. It's so trite. By the way, shout out for using the word trite. Very nice. So it's so trite. Why do women think it is so funny? It makes us look dumb. So what do you think about the mommy wine culture?
Well, I 100% agree. And, I love a good joke. I love humor. But what we're seeing now with, rose all day totes and all these wines that have been, you know, spruced up to be sold specifically to women and moms, Skinny Girl. I'm trying to think of some other ones that are just blatantly, just part of this mommy wine culture. Um, I think it was funny 20 years ago when we saw that first dish towel that said, sometimes I cook with my wine, and things like that. But and that's, little comments can be funny, but at this point in time, we are clearly just being sold products, and it's just an effort to sell more stuff. And of course, when you see that alcohol abuse has increased, so drastically, especially in women, then some alarm should go off. Like, this is no longer really cool. And when you have a daughter, when I was a young mom and she was 5, and I would have my glass of wine while cooking, or go to a girls' night, and wine was the feature of the evening. I didn't think that much about it. There was a huge difference, right? Like, I'm an adult woman, she's 5. But then as they start approaching those teenage years, I think something is also triggered. And I have a good friend who talked about this too. She was like, I just realized, you know, my daughter's 11 and she's looking at me every night with this glass of wine in my hand. And do I want her to see that every single night? A party, a special occasion, sure. But is that something that needs to be a part of our daily family routine? And I had never looked at it that way. And so that was just an aha moment that completely made sense when you think about it. But until you really think about it and become more aware, it's just, okay, well, no big deal. I'm just doing what everyone does. Um, and so I think as we see our children growing up and they approach those drinking ages, we do start thinking more too, like, how does this look? How is this affecting? And back to the mommy wine culture, um, do we really have to throw wine and pink boas and all these other things at women in order to get us to buy stuff? That's, as a woman, if I want if I want to go to a baseball game, I want to go to the baseball game. And it doesn't have to be ladies' night where they've decided to serve rosé and hand out some kind of little pink, gadget. Like, I just want to go to the baseball game. And most of the time I would want to go with my family and have that family experience. You don't have to lure women by making everything pink and wine filled. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, and one of the past episodes we had, you kind of opened my eyes to the mommy wine. Like, I'm a dude. I don't pay attention to much. Even though I train women, I don't really pay attention to much. But when you said, talking about the mommy wine culture, and I started looking around, like, man, it is everywhere.
Everywhere.
And with your kids especially, you think about that. Like, they hear what you say, but they're gonna do what you do for the most part, right? If they see, well, this is
Right,
this is what mommy does every night. But guess what? That's what people do, right? So I
right,
see it all the time
right,
with exercise. That parents will tell their kids, hey, you should work out and eat right, but they're not eating right and working out. The kids definitely aren't gonna do it. So
right,
um,
right. What is that saying? Do not what I say, do what I do. And
yeah,
so they're watching. And we have very frank conversations with our daughter too. I mean, we're under no, you know, disillusion that, oh, she's never going to drink. I mean, she may drink, and we tell her that, because she right now is, oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm like,
yeah,
well, you don't know that. And until you're in that environment, in that situation, if everyone's drinking around you, you may drink. And what we want you to know is, you know, you can try things. People make mistakes. It's part of growing up. You go through the process, and that may be something that you do, especially if your friends are doing it. What we do want you to know is you can say no. And if you are in a situation, um, call us. I mean, we're there, period. You know, whatever decisions you make, we're there. Do not get in the car with someone. That is the biggest thing we try to
right,
say, is do not get in the car with someone, because that is a harsh reality. That the Huntsville community, I mean, we have various stories that are absolutely heartbreaking, of teenagers getting in the car with someone
absolutely,
who's been
yeah,
drinking. And so just make good decisions.
yeah. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. And it helps if they have a good role model to help them make those decisions. So, Amy, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. These were some great
Thank
questions.
you.
Thank you for the readers and listeners for sending those in. Those are very helpful to guide things. But, Amy, you have something cool coming up. You can't really tell everything about it, but give us a little teaser on what you got coming up.
Well, I am launching a monthly magazine for Huntsville. And, we do not have a monthly. So this is kind of new territory, exciting, or at least we have not had one in a long time. And to be able to bring to life all these incredible stories that we have and go a little deeper in the community, I'm excited about. And of course, I want you to be a part too, because you are a wealth of knowledge and are such a big part of this community as
Oh, I would
well.
love to take part in that. That would be great. I think we need more gingers in magazines, so that'll be good. So, what's the best? Is Instagram the best place to keep up with you? By the way, if you don't follow Amy on Instagram yet, you're missing out. She's very Instagrammable. I'm making up words for her. What's your Instagram again? Is that the best place
um,
to?
it's at my scoop. So
Yeah, and I'll link you that in
that's
show
me.
notes. Some because I know some of y'all can't spell, so I'm gonna link that in show notes. So, Amy, I can't wait for everyone to get the full details on what you got coming up. It sounds very awesome. But thank you for letting me be a part of it. But and thank you for what you're doing out there. I think a lot of people I saw it's called Sober Curious. There's a lot of people that are sober curious
Yes.
out there right now, and they have these questions and they need them answered, and you're the person to help them out. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Joe.
Absolutely. Y'all keep up with Amy. Follow My Scoop on Instagram. I'm going to link that to you for you non-spellers out there. Hey, and share this episode with somebody. There's probably someone here that they have these same questions and they need them answered. So share that with us. Have them follow Amy for any more further questions, and we will see you guys next time.